It's here.
Hello?
Have you checked the children?
They're all pods, all of them.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
I'm afraid!
Don't be afraid!
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Here's Gingy.
Pain has a face. Allow me to show it to you. Gentlemen, I am pain.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face. The blackest eyes. The devil's eyes.
You think that when you die, you go to heaven. You come to us.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
I think he's in trouble.
Julie, this guy, if he can't take a joke, he stinks.
When there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk here.
Greetings, Flesh Wound Radio freaks, and welcome to a brand new episode of Flesh Wound Radio Analog Nightmares, The Ghosting. I'm Daniel Shine, joined as always by Todd Loya, Pugs Dread, and our special guest this evening, Chris McGibbon. Gentlemen, how goes your evening?
All goes well. I know it's funny. We had to explain this was a different kind of ghosting before we started the show, not what Dan's used to.
Yeah. Todd is being an asshole today. I was just letting you in on like behind the scenes stuff. Todd is like, yeah, he's being a dick, man.
I'm having a great time.
He's being an asshole today. It must be Tuesday.
I know. Any day that ends in Y, he's sending me like stuff to trigger phobias and all this weird crap all day.
I love you, Dan. That's all right.
Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
Damn. In jokes to kick this thing off.
Oh, no, everyone knows spaghetti fear. We've talked about it numerous times.
Well, we're new to YouTube, you know.
Okay, we'll talk about it in a different episode then. So
anyways, yes, we have a very special show tonight. We are covering, not only reviewing a very rare lost film, but we are also going to tell the story behind it. And it's quite fascinating. Chris has his own sort of unique story with this movie. And I should say it is The Ghosting. Again, not my love life, just The Ghosting. It's a supernatural thing, not a love thing. From writer-director Walt Hefner, and it is from 1992. And so we are going to review it, but I thought first I'm going to send it to Chris because there is a story behind this that I think is very intriguing. So Chris, how did you get involved with The Ghosting, and tell us a little bit about your journey with this movie?
All right. So as some folks may or may not know, I've recently started getting into the very ever so frustrating hobby of collecting VHS tapes. And with each passing day, there's a new thing that just makes me want to throw everyone I know that does it out a window at a busted full speed. But anyway, and somebody posted about this movie in one of the groups that I was in. And I was like, I've never even heard of this. And then somebody asked the question, is this one of the ones from The Fire? And I went, that's intriguing. So somebody answered saying, yeah, this was one of the ones pulled from the church fire, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? So I Googled The Ghosting church fire, found an article back in 2017. Walt Hefner had purchased this church back in the early 80s to actually make this movie. And since the movie was made, he used the church as a production office / storage space. So apparently in the last, I guess like the late 2000s, he didn't frequent it as much. He still owned the building. It had kind of fallen disrepair, but it was still it was still standing, everything like that. The tapes were still there. The negative to the movie was there. All the sound elements, everything like that. It was a place where a lot of homeless people would hang out. And one day, one of them started a fire, and the fire basically took care of everything that was in the church, except for a handful of boxes of VHS tapes of the ghosting. And evidently, the wreck of the church was there long enough for people to loot what was there. There were people who went into the basement and took copies of the movie out and started selling them on eBay, selling them online. The director himself was selling them through Amazon for a long time for like $7. Once the story of the church and the movie kind of came to light, and I think 2017 VHS was kind of on a steady incline, the idea of getting a hold of this movie that now is long lost and destroyed, or there was only so many copies to begin with, just seemed very coveted. So when I found out about it, just kind of like everybody else, I was like, fuck, I kind of want to see this, but nobody was selling it. And if you go on eBay and you type in the ghosting, good luck. You know, anything with the word ghost in it pops up. You get like 36,000 results. Even if you narrow it down to VHS, it's like, just forget about it. Plus copies are going for like, I did find one that sold for like $89, and I'm like, I'm not paying $89 for something I've never seen. I'm not doing it. So I went through like the channels and looked on Instagram, because there's a lot of VHS folks on Instagram, and found a guy who once upon a time was selling multiple copies at one point, and he said that he still had some, but he wouldn't ship them because he had sold so many in the last year that a lot of them ended up on eBay, and people were just gouging the prices. So like he basically said that if I wanted it, I had to come pick it up. And my response to that was, well, if I wanted it, and I lived in Spokane because he was based out of Spokane, Washington, where the movie was made, badly enough to go to Spokane, Washington to go get it, what makes you think I wouldn't sell it on eBay just because I picked it up from you? You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to be he's like, well, I would know that you were local and I'd see your information. I'm like, you would just see that I was in Spokane, Washington. The movie was made in Spokane, Washington. Like, there's more than 4 people that would have this movie potentially, or whatever number of people you would sell to normally, or people who were in it, people who knew somebody who was in it. So like, how do you even know it was me or anybody? Like, can't you just send me the damn tape? He wouldn't do it. So as luck would have it, a friend of mine was going to Spokane in like 3 weeks. And I said to him, listen, could you do me a huge favor? If I give you the money, will you go pick this tape up for me? He's like, yeah, of course. So he gets out there, picks up the tape, sends me a picture of it. It's like, okay, that's it. That's great. Thanks a lot. I'll see you when you get home. Gets home, gives me the tape, and I had a movie night. Had a couple friends over. We all wanted to sit down and watch it. And then so I said, okay, now that I've seen it, I need to track down the people who made it and see if they're interested in putting it out again. Maybe there's something we can do. Got a hold of the director's son, and basically found out the director, unfortunately, after the church burned down, it hit him really hard, and he started showing advanced stages of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Oh, okay.
So he doesn't even remember making the movie. And his son was alive when they made the movie, so he told me some stuff about the making of it, and everything. And by the way, here's the tape. So I do have the tape. It's in my possession. It smells of smoke, which I actually just found out. I just gave it. I realized you don't really smell things, smell tapes or anything. But I just realized that it does have a smoky smell. This is one of the ones that was pulled from the church. Mm-hmm. And I did find out any of those copies they were basically, the way the director's son put it, is they were illegally sold. These people who sold these were not authorized to sell them, which made the guy not wanting to ship it make more sense, because I would have had his address, I would have had his information. I mean, I guess he could have not put a return address, whatever. But that started to make more sense, that maybe he thought he might get into trouble. Maybe he had already been spoken to by the director's son. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the director's son did ask me where I got this, and I did tell him I have no reason to protect the guy.
He gave you a hard time.
And, yeah, no shit. So I'm like, all right, if you were easier about this, I might have been like, oh, I don't know, it just came from eBay, But
that'd be a dick.
Anyway, right. Yeah, But I don't know if anything ever came of it, but we did find out that the Library of Congress does have a 5-reel print of the movie, which is good because it means a Blu-ray could happen someday. But the director's son is the one who's in charge of the movie right now. Him and his family are the ones who are in charge of it, and they're just really not sure what they want to do with it. So they're kind of waiting or holding off until, they can figure out what it is they want to do. So that's kind of where it is right now. But by all accounts, right now, this is technically considered a lost film. There, the copies that are on VHS, there's about 250. I think he said that were printed, or 500, something like that. He sold 250, or there was 500 printed. I can't remember. It was a rounded number. I remember that, but there's very few copies floating around. I guess that's the point. So, yeah. So there you go.
I am shocked that you didn't fly out to Spokane, which I've actually been there before. I thought that's where that was going to go.
No, I wasn't flying out to Spokane, Washington to buy a $20 tape. And apparently the area that my friend picked up the tape in wasn't exactly like a nice area. Apparently it was like, it was very sketchy. He said like it was like cars on cinder blocks sketchy. Like he was like, we actually thought like we were going to get mugged or something. Cause they had a rental. It was a brand new car. And he was like, my friend, like, it was like a bank robbery. His friend waited in the car with the engine running in case they had to get away real fast. So
smart.
But, Bill's a big guy. So it's like, well, whatever. No one's probably going to mess with him. And I guess the woman whose store he picked it up at, she had just been robbed like the night before. And so she was worried somebody had taken the tape because the guy brought it to her to give to him. Like it was this whole weird transaction. But like she was worried that somebody might have actually stolen it. And he was like, well, I'm here to pick it up. So if someone did, can you contact the guy who has them? Because he had more of them and just have him come bring one or have me meet him somewhere. But anyway, it was still there. But because he had asked her, like, oh, they broke, like, when did they break in? Oh, she goes, oh, this morning. And, like, he's like, she was so unfazed by it. It's like, this happens often, so it's not a big deal. And he was just like, this little sweet old lady was just kind of like, yeah, someone broke in. It happens. What were you here for again?
As they drove off, they should have tossed a Molotov. Like, here, deja vu.
I know, right?
I was waiting.
Might have done a favor.
I can imagine that the sweet old ladies, like inbred kids, may have had their way with your friend, and then that awkward moment in the hospital where you have to ask, like, "Did you get my tape?"
and the worst part is, I totally fucking would have. So did you get the tape?
Glad you're alive.
I mean, like,
the tape.
Yeah. That's what I was looking for,
bro.
It's supposed to be shrink wrap, man. Why is it open? That was the one thing that I did ask the guy to do because all the tapes were brand new, and I said to him, "You better open it and play it. Make sure it plays. Because if I get it all the way back here and it doesn't play, you are mailing me one. Because I'm going through fucking jumping through all of these hoops to get it, and like I don't know what the fuck stars aligned for me to just happen to have a friend who was going to that area in like 2 weeks that I talked to this guy. So." I was like, I'm not risking it. He goes, I'll give you my personal copy. I know it plays. So that's the one he gave me. But it was cut open at the bottom because obviously he had played it. But yeah, so I didn't want to take that risk. But he still has copies. He just won't mail them to anybody. So
that is interesting. I'm sure he's probably selling them somehow, somewhere. But
I think he's selling them at this antique flea market or something like that. That's the general impression I got. But
I would be shocked if you go to the Goodwill in Spokane and find some there. If people were stealing them out of the church.
Probably, yeah. You know what? Yeah, that's probably true. And there's people. I know one guy who has 2 of them, but I think he got them like through trading with people or something because he was trying to trade them too, and like, he didn't want to sell them because I even asked him, "Would you be willing to sell one of those? Because like I don't have anything you want, but I could buy it from you." And he's just like, "No, I'm really looking to trade right now, but if I do want to sell it, I'll let you know." And so I was like, "Okay, well, whatever." And I've seen it pop up in a couple of collections here and there, but like, this wasn't even distributed by anybody. This was made and printed by the director. This isn't homemade. Like he actually went and got professional cases made. Like it was shrink wrapped, like I said, but there's no distributor. Like there's nothing on the back here. I know you guys is a glare there, but like there's nothing like even when the movie opens, there's no like company logo. It's just an FBI warning, and then the movie starts.
Yeah.
That's it. So
we'll throw up some graphics. Chris, you'll have to send us some pics.
Yeah, I'll have to scan this for you. But yeah, I mean, he did this all himself, and then the budget of the movie was like $750,000 because he paid all of his actors SAG rates.
Oh, wow.
Like,
damn.
This and he shot everything on 35 millimeter. He edited it. He did the editing, cut the negative. He made prints to screen it theatrically. Like, this guy did all of this himself. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, I think the movie ended up costing like $1.5 million to make. That includes like buying the church that the movie was shot in. And I'm just like, I can understand completely why Walt Hefner never made another movie again, because he probably was just like, well, fuck this. Because I guess when it opened, he played it in theaters out in Spokane, and it wasn't received particularly well. So I think that was, and I think he was already older. I think my son said he was already in his 50s at that point, but he'd always been a film buff. And the other thing that was lost in the church, I just remembered this, was a bunch of nitrate prints. That's why the church went up so bad, because he was a film collector.
Oh.
So he had a bunch of prints from like the 20s and 30s that were all nitrate. So
wow.
Once that fire went up, everything just went with it.
You know what blows my mind about that story is how the bums didn't like completely clear that out and steal all that shit if they were squatting in there.
A bum's not going to steal a VHS tape, even they know they're worthless.
Well, they're not worthless.
They're not on eBay, Dan.
How do you
or
know
Facebook?
Yeah, don't have eBay. Bums are high tech these days, Todd. Don't make assumptions about bums.
Would it be called Bumbay? I feel like that's a porn site.
Could be.
Dan, is that one you frequent?
Brought to you by the makers of Bum Fights. That was a thing. So it was a thing. So it's interesting. Obviously, this is one. I didn't have it, and I had some very rare VHS. I've never owned this one before, and I remember hearing the name. I've always been somebody who, even when I was a little kid, I tried to find every rare horror movie. IMDb was probably one of the first websites I ever discovered, and I would go through, make notes. I would ask. I traveled all the time. Visited every video store we would pass on road trips across the country and even Canada. And whatever I could find, I mean, I would bring my paper in and ask like the video store clerks, like, okay, do you have this? Do you have this? And I'd keep going. And usually they just tell me to, piss off after a while.
It was the heck.
I never found this. Ever. I don't think I ever saw it. I don't know of a ma and pop that had it. So it's definitely rare. And I vaguely remember asking about it because I think I found it on IMDb. So it's one of those ones I kind of hadn't thought about in a long time until Chris had his story. And I guess with that, let's talk a little bit about the movie.
Well, why don't you read us the synopsis on the back, Chris?
Yeah.
All right. It's very short. A spunky working mom, which for some reason is bolded. This is the only part of the sentence that's bolded, by the way. A spunky working mom moves her husband, still stressed out from the Vietnam era, and their two children into an old abandoned church where they are tormented by an evil shape-shifting ghost from hell. Now, there is a quote on here, too. I guess I'll read that, too, which once again has... I mean, this makes sense that some stuff's bolded because it's like... pay attention to this part of the quote, but a roller coaster that doesn't slow down for the quiet meditation or casual observation of one's navel. The ghosting is loaded with the funky fun of the old thrillers, highly enjoyable, unearthly noises, flying dishes, a baptismal full of snakes. Don't think this is just another slasher flick. The ultimate psychological thriller has kept the bloodletting to a minimum. The Spokesman Review.
I'm sure that was one of those great supermarket newspapers.
The quote is longer than the synopsis.
It almost sounds like up to a point that sounded like a 90s sitcom, like a spunky mom up at church somewhere.
Yeah.
It's the Roseanne Halloween special, 2-hour edition.
Yeah, oh yeah, Roseanne and Dan go to like clean up the church. Dan hits a drifter on his way and doesn't want to spoil Halloween. And
well, who does?
I will say the artwork is great on this. This has a really great
Yeah, that is
piece of
cool.
art.
That is a cool looking VHS cover. So, Chris, I'll let you do the honors. What did you think once you finally saw
Yeah,
this? 'Cause,
the big question, was it worth it all?
I think it was worth it because it was amazing to sit down with 4 other people and watch a movie that you kind of realize that you're probably one of like 300 people who's ever seen it. I think that aspect of it was cool. And honestly, we all didn't hate it. We all thought it was, we all pretty much had the same general consensus that it was okay. It was a little longer than it should have been. It really, they should have shaved 10 minutes off of the movie because the last 20 minutes of this movie is fucking crazy. And that really should have been more of the movie. Like a giant fucking dinosaur head that's like the cheapest thing I've ever seen pops up. And like, for what reason? It just happens.
Best
and like,
glory hole ever.
seriously, it was so fucking nuts. The last like 20 minutes is just nuts. And it's just like, so if you can, and then there's, you know, and there's some obvious fucking bloopers in the movie, like when the ghost kicks the door in and the door closes like right in his face. You can tell like that was supposed to cut earlier, but it didn't. Like the door hit the wall and then slammed back shut in his face. And I'm like, I don't think that's how that was supposed to go down. But they probably only did it in one shot, or they, you know, and that's all they had, so they worked with it. But and I think it was supposed to be a comedy too. I think there was supposed to be some comedic elements to it too. But once the movie opened with like the guy singing that "When the Hearse Goes By" song, I was like, okay, this is going to be different. Because that guy was fucking weird looking, and he was just, the facial expressions he had were just crazy. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say it was worth it to go through the trouble to get it. You know, and I did talk to a few folks about, you know, it potentially getting released, but like I said, the director's son is just kind of waiting. I'm not sure for what, but he just wants to kind of hold out. I don't think he's holding out for like a good or better deal. Like he's not a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You know, so he's not like, you know, thinking he's going to get rich. But I think his mindset is he wants to see, like, I honestly think he's waiting for his father to pass away before he does anything, you know, maybe just to kind of, you know, not have that potentially affect him in some way. I don't know, but whatever. I didn't ask. I don't want to get too personal, but so
what did you think, Pugs?
I have to co-sign with it being slightly too long, because that is one of my pet peeves. I'm like, know when to end. Be respectful of my time. I love watching movies, but I hate when they do that. But I'll give this guy a break. Now knowing his story from Chris, fucking A, you did a very good job. I'm going to be lenient, and it was good enough. But my favorite part is the fucking Zool dinosaur looking thing popping out of nowhere.
Oh my god!
That
it
and then
funny. It looks.
And then the G.
It looks like a.
Go ahead.
It looks like a deranged Muppet.
Yeah.
Like that's what it looks like. Like that's honestly what it looks like. It's a fucking deranged Muppet. I was trying to think of the right word, but I'm like, yeah, that's what it looks like.
That the Jesus crucifying scene. I was like, oh damn, this is hard. Hell yeah, more of this. And the snakes. That was just creepy.
Yeah, the snakes thing was creepy.
It feels like he spent maybe like $749,000 on the church or something. But I'll be honest. So a lot of these little sort of, I guess we can call it almost a regional oddity because it really didn't have much of a release. Most of them are not very good in a traditional sense if you stack them against other things, but this is not terrible. It really isn't. I will co-sign at an hour and 50 minutes. You could probably lose at least 15 to tighten it up. There are definitely spots here that
cut down on the music. All those horns in the city.
Yeah, you could definitely cut that down. I thought the villain was actually fairly creepy. Kind of had like a Jeffrey Lewis sort of vibe going. I thought he did a pretty good job. I had an issue with he's not a bad actor, but the guy that played the dad was never quite likable. He was kind of an ass, to be honest. But
I think it was like a Shining thing, because if you watch that, he's always a dick all the way through.
Yeah, heavy Shining vibes. Definitely heavy Shining vibes.
there were some weird decisions made too in the editing, like the scene where the girl's outside talking to the guy, the dude she ends up going on a date with. Like half of that scene, there's music over the dialogue. Then all of a sudden, they start talking, and it's like in the middle of a sentence, and it's like, was the sound for the scene bad? So they had to like put music over it, and then when the sound was good, they just let the scene continue.
All I know, all I know is that's the one thing I wanted to bring up. I was watching it, and it felt like it was 20 minutes. I was like, am I high? How high am I? What's going on? And I'm just like trying to read everyone's lips with the music blaring. I'm like, fuck. I was like, I feel bad for the. Was it so bad the director said, we'll just throw some music over it? Or
it could have been.
Or did they know they were just going to be, talking, and then it was like I got into a real deep spot. I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah, that was a weird decision to make. I wish I could find out why they did it, but
I also popped when we're in the son's bedroom and he had like a Plan 9 from Outer Space poster, and I was like,
the Killer Tomatoes. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to keep our expectations. Oh, they had I Walk with the Zombie poster, and that's a fantastic.
Yeah.
piece.
Well, like I said, the director was a huge film buff, so those are probably original posters. Those are probably just ones he had in his possession that he hung up. And when that kid disappears, kind of spoilers, but like I think it's going to be kind of hard for anyone to watch this movie, so I don't think spoilers like really pertain here. But like, I love that scene when like they're like, "Oh, he's at the hospital," and like no one's concerned anymore. It's like, yeah, he's at the hospital. How the fuck did he get to the hospital? No one even asked that question. He's just there. Well, we'll go get him. It's fine. And I'm like, wait, what? But how did he get there? Like the ghost took him to the hospital? Like he was sucked into a void. How did he end up at the hospital? It was just stuff like that. It was like, okay, so somebody had moonshine. That's all I can say.
It is also, I mean, there's a lot of one-timers in the cast, but there are also some guys who have like credits for TV shows like Trapper John and stuff. So I can see they probably spent more than they really had to. The acting is actually overall better than you usually see in this type of film.
Well, they were paid. They were paid. Yeah. I mean, like I said, they were paid SAG rates, so they were getting like $250 a day, something like that. All the actors. So
yeah.
I guess if you can offer a paid gig in Spokane, Washington, you'll probably get the best that Spokane has to offer. I did kind of think it was funny they had the Twin Peaks reference at the beginning, like that this town somewhere near Twin Peaks, and I'm like, okay.
92. It was big at that time, so. Yeah,
well, it was never really big though, Dan. That was the problem. It's nothing to speak of the quality, but if it was big, it would have lasted.
It's big now.
It's big now. Thank you very much, Todd.
Talking about 92.
All right.
You literally said it was big in 92. That's why I got canceled.
Todd, what did you think of the movie?
I'm kind of with everyone. It's like I expected to not like it. I expected the story to be better than the actual film, which I still think it is, but I actually enjoyed the film. Other than the part I was just like, what am I doing? What's going on? Still, could you not get better music?
Right. Yeah, that was a trip watching it with other people. Like we all kind of had that same reaction. Like, did we just drop some acid? Like what? You all can't hear anything, right? Like this is happening. Like this diet. They're speaking and the words aren't coming out, right? Like we're all on the same page, and everyone's like, "Yep." They're totally like we're trying to read lips. Like, did this movie need subtitles?
I wish I had someone to watch it with. And so, full disclosure, I had taken a CBD fucking THC pill to relax. So that scene I was like, Jesus Christ.
Todd, did the guy show up with the snake in his mouth in your bathroom? And Todd punched out a family member. Just boom. It's a big thing. Todd's not revealing the story.
I will say the special effects in it are pretty decent too. Like they had, I mean, except for the giant Muppet,
It's
but
charming though.
but like the actual like gore stuff and the guy's makeup when his face is all fucked up, I'm like, that's actually pretty effective.
Yeah.
It looked pretty good. I really think that this was a very ambitious project. I really do. Like that's what and there's a lot of heart into it. Like you can definitely tell like the people who did this, or the guy, at least the guy behind the camera, was really trying to get something out of what he had. Like, and it wasn't much, but he was like, like it almost felt like he just thought of random shit that he could throw in, and like didn't even consider if it would work or not, but thought if we can do it, we can do it. Let's just do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of gusto is what sort of makes it stand out a little bit, and makes it more likable because it is entertaining. I mean, it is a little long, so parts of it can drag a little bit. But like I said, when the crazy shit starts happening, it pretty much just keeps the ball rolling. It doesn't really slow down. So
there are definitely moments. I mean, that's the thing I will say about this. Pugs brought up like the crucifix scene, like out of nowhere, and the makeup that is there is really good. It's light to an extent. Then there's some moments, and I'm guessing maybe it was the director because there's kind of like an implied sort of entity assault that goes down that they weren't super graphic about, but you can kind of see what they were going for.
Right.
So there were some like, oh shit moments. Honestly, if they tightened it up, I would say it's actually pretty decent for this type of regional oddity that never really had a release. I could easily see this coming out through like a Garage House Pictures or a Sub Rosa. There are films like this that are put out because let's be real, we're getting to a point now where who knows, some of these could end up being lost forever if they don't make it to some kind of digital format, and Ghosting for sure could be one of those films. And I've watched a lot of quote unquote lost films, rare films, and I've seen a lot worse. It took me a while almost to sort of digest this movie and my thoughts on it. So I would say it has its issues, but it is more than worth a watch if you can somehow find it.
You know what I was honestly expecting from it was, did you guys see that movie, The Seance?
Yeah.
That Corey Feldman was in.
Okay, yeah.
That movie was fucking like that was hell.
Yeah.
That was fucking hell to get through. I was expecting that. Like that movie was so bad, like the director didn't even want to release it. His son put it out after he died, and he put it on YouTube. He's like, I don't even want to have anyone pay for this shit. Here it is, and I'm just like, what? I remember sitting there watching it with my friends. We were like 45 minutes into it. And like, because it has one of those fake endings where like they all in the middle of the movie, all of a sudden everyone's alive again, and it was all just a dream. And I'm like, okay, this is the end of the movie. But then it all starts all over again. Like the whole movie just basically restarts, and then an hour later it's over. I'm like, I can't fucking believe we're watching this a second time. Just slightly different. Like this is. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, that was so bad. I was expecting something like that, but it wasn't like that. So I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, quality-wise, I was expecting something along the lines of like an early Polonia Brothers sort of production. I really thought, which I'll be honest, it's funny because like some of their earlier stuff is kind of endearing in its, lack of technical refinement. And like their new stuff, or well, the one guy died, but the new Mark's new stuff is almost unwatchable. But yeah, this is there definitely was some money behind this. I would really be curious to know exactly what they spent on screen. I'm sure now that's none of us would ever really know, but
$750,000. That's what it was.
Minus the church, though. You know what I mean?
That's not including the church.
Oh, it's not. Oh shit. Okay.
Wow. He bought the church for $1.3 million.
Oof.
So the church wasn't included. The budget, because like I said, you had you paid SAG rates
Yeah.
for everybody. That's not just the actors. The DP got SAG rates. He shot it on 35, so he paid for the film. He paid for the cameras. I think he bought. You know what he did? It's actually kind of funny. He did what Tommy Wiseau did. He went out and bought the film equipment. He didn't rent it. He bought it all because he was going to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
He wanted to make movies. And he bought all of the film stock. His dad's like, all of that's not his dad. His son was like, all of that stuff was in the church. All of that equipment was still there when it burned down.
Wow.
So
I wouldn't want to remember that either. Then he's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, then not and just to have a movie that you made not really do much, spend that much money and not even kind of recoup your costs, and then to have it basically all get destroyed. I think that just that was enough to, unfortunately, set him over the edge. But it's unfortunate that he's in ill health and that he may not be able to see it. People can appreciate this type of movie because I do think if it came out on Blu-ray, people would watch it and they would like it. I think the problem is that it didn't really have distribution, so you couldn't really find it unless you knew about it.
Yeah,
you didn't really know what it was unless you knew about it. Now, the other thing that I found interesting was if you look up this movie on the Library of Congress, because that's how we found out that there was a 5-reel print sitting there. There's another copyright in 2008. He cut together another version of the movie that he copywrote in 2008, which apparently he shot a new beginning to the movie and added some stuff in the middle and shot a whole new ending. So I'm like, so there's more? The movie's longer?
I was hoping you were going to say he tightened it up.
No, he added more. He might have tightened some stuff up, but his son told me he added more stuff. And he said that's on a DVD somewhere. He goes, I actually know he's like, I can try to find for you and send you a copy, because the only VHS tape his son had was their personal one that they had kept. And, and each one of the siblings had one. They weren't sure. He's like, I'd have to see if my sister would want to give up hers or whatever. But I even said to him, if you guys can just make me a copy of it, I'd be happy with that too.
Yeah.
Because at that point I was just willing to take anything. But he said that there is that other cut is on DVD somewhere.
I would like to see it. I hope they do it.
I hope they do too. I do hope this isn't the end of this. That when people look for this at some point, it might just find our podcast and a few reviews, and that's the end of the ghosting. Because again, I don't want to oversell it by any means, but for you guys that do like rare movies, I
think it's definitely worth checking out. Make it a double feature. Put this on first, and then watch Shocker. I think you have a good time.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
Like Wes Craven's Shocker?
No, am I wrong? I just think that's a good pairing.
No,
you could if you let that one main event.
Chris would have went with the horror show.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm not even sure I would have gone with that. There are an abundance of movies in that year about serial killers getting killed in the electric chair and coming back. There's Shocker, there's the horror show, there's The Chair, there's Prison, and those all came out in the span of 4 years. It's like one guy had one script that he just kept selling to different studios, and they all kept buying it, not realizing that someone else had already bought it, and then they had to make changes. I just saw the horror show for the first time, and I was like, I feel like this is what Shocker should have been, but I still don't like this either, because I didn't like Shocker. I was like, because I thought my problem with Shocker was they tried to set up a horror villain with Horace Pinker, who was great, or Horace Pinker, whatever the fuck his name is, and he was great, and the actor was great, and the idea was great, but he's barely in the fucking movie because he's possessing people. I'm like, so it's Jason Goes to Hell. We got him at the beginning, and we got him at the end. It's not enough. He needed to be in the whole fucking movie.
I actually like this one better than Jason Goes to Hell. But that was my big problem with Jason Goes to Hell, so I totally understand where you're coming from.
I like both. But I like both. Watching Shocker, it's very obvious that was supposed to be Universal's Nightmare on Elm Street. They wanted a franchise.
Oh, absolutely. But I just feel like that if I was in... If I was an executive at Universal, I would have said to them, if we want this, this fucker needs to be in more of the movie.
But honestly, that seems like something that would happen with the second. Because if you look at the first of most, horror films, that character's not in it as much. And it's really establishing more And then you like look at Child's Play. Then your sequels when you get that, they're kind of
right. It's true, but you don't have somebody pretending to be Chucky through all of Child's Play. Does that make sense? Like you don't.
Well,
you had the character in the movie, but he wasn't in the movie. It was different actors playing possessed roles, so it didn't seem like you were dealing with him. It seemed like you were dealing with them, where you're trying to establish him. So make that the sequel where he starts possessing people. Because let me tell you, if the whole movie was the last 20 minutes of Shocker, we'd be on Shocker 18 by now. Because that last fucking 20 minutes where they're jumping through all the old TV shows and movies and shit, that's the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
It's insane, and it needed to be the whole movie. And that would have set it apart from the... And I think the other problem is it really was like the other three movies to the point where, like, people got confused which one was which. So if it set itself apart a little bit, it would have stood out a bit.
It did.
Yeah.
I remember it stood out more because it was the one theatrical one. The others weren't. Yeah. Everyone thought the others were ripoffs of Shocker, even if it's not the case.
Yeah.
Both these movies have crazy endings.
They do. They both have a wild... someone should edit together a reel of the last 20 minutes of each movie and just put them together.
Yeah.
That could be the double feature. Movies that have crazy... Like the last 20 minutes is crazy.
What if they would have ended up into the ghosting in the Shocker?
Oh,
there you go.
There you go. There you go.
That would
Together.
Right.
You know what movie I actually do think this... Well, it wouldn't make a great double feature because it would be an exercise in patience. But I think if you played this with Scared Stiff, because they're both very similar, like haunted house movies, where actually they're... Oh my God, they're insanely similar to the fact where I'm not sure if this one actually might have ripped that off. They both involve like people moving into a house where like something really bad happened, and both husbands get possessed or get fucked up. The last 20 minutes is insane. Yeah, structurally they're kind of the same. So anyway, I think those two might work. Those could work well together. But then you got to watch Scared Stiff.
You know what this also reminded me of, and I will say, this is the better movie, but another somewhat rare one, not to be confused with the J.R. Bookwalter flick, but Ozone, Attack of the Redneck Mutants, which is actually much shorter, but it feels longer because there was like so much bullshit footage that you could hack that into like a 30-minute movie. But
yeah, that was an interesting film.
Yeah, not good, but
I remember.
You're using the word film loosely.
It was shot, well. It was shot on film.
That's about the only thing that makes it a film. Is it was shot on it.
Yeah, the only thing I remember. I remember a lot from it, but one of the biggest things I remember from it is that blonde girl saying she had to go to her singing engagement, and it was like some yokel convenience store with like a karaoke machine. I'm like, you couldn't even rent out a hall. And like just put, even if there was nobody there, just make it look like the fucking 5 extras you had was a group of people. You went to a fucking like deli, and that's where her singing engagement. I mean, I guess it's like redneck country, so I mean, like maybe that's their idea of like a hoedown, but I don't know. But I will say that Ozone at least had some really nasty effects. They really had some gory, nasty bits. The mutants were cool. They were all black and charred and shit. And the intestines, I'm fairly positive those were real intestines. They were real, like there was definitely like one of them takes out some woman's lungs, and that was definitely a set of lungs. You could see all the ins and outs of it and everything like that. So that was kind of cool.
During my movie days, that was one that there was at least floated the idea that it might be remade. And it does have its moments, but there's all these random shots of just like, here, let's focus on this grass for a minute, where it was like, really.
And there's that random scene where they all sit down to have fried chicken together, like they're all having dinner, and it's like all of these characters have legitimately run into the mutants, like they've already attacked them, and they're out in the open in the middle of the fucking Georgia sun having a picnic. I'm like, this would be the last thing I'd be wanting to do. In this situation, I'd be leaving.
So ghosting's not that bad. Ghosting does, it could trim a little, but it's not particularly the bar scene. That was like where I was like, you could almost lose that entire thing. You know?
Yeah. You could have lost that. I think there could have been more in the middle that they could have taken out. I think there was some stuff that and little trims, just tightening stuff up. I think would have made this stand out a bit more. I think it was one of those cases because this happens with a lot of low budget movies. They put everything they shot in the movie.
Yeah.
Because the way they kind of look at it is we spent money on this, or maybe they didn't spend any money, but they're looking at it as they spent money. So everything's got to be in here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I mean, look at that movie, Swamp Zombies. It's 2.5 hours long. Yeah. No movie called Swamp Zombies should be anything more than maybe 80 minutes. And even at that, I think you're pushing it. But 2.5 fucking hours long, that's 2 movies. That's sitting down and watching 2 movies.
And there was a somewhat high-profile indie that just did that recently. I Spit on Your Grave 2 Deja Vu. I was waiting
to bring that one up.
Yeah, that one was there are some moments in there, but yeah, it's like they just shot everything, and I'm like, man, did this guy Mir did he not make a movie before? Because anybody could sit down and say, all right, the pacing's terrible. We need to cut this down. But yeah, it is weird every once in a while.
I think one of the biggest lessons I learned, because I worked on an independent movie, and the first thing we did when it was finished, not the first thing, but it was one of the first things we did, was one of the production assistants and I went to the director's house to watch the first rough cut of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was close to, if it wasn't 3 hours, it was damn near close to 3 hours long. And we just both kind of looked at each other this better not be anywhere near the final product because, no one's going to sit through this. This is the length of fucking Titanic. And people had a hard time sitting through that, and a fucking ship sank. You know what I mean? And a bunch of people died, and there was explosions and everything, and that was tough. This is never going to fly. And he eventually edited it down to I think it's 85 minutes. At the end of the day, that's what the final cut of the movie ended up being. But it was just thankfully he had the know that okay, not everything we shot is going to be in the movie, but seeing it all put together kind of gives you an idea of what can go, what doesn't need to stay, and blah, 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 blah. And I don't think that there's enough directors who have that hindsight of okay, we shot this scene. Yeah, it's a cool scene, but it really drags down this part of the movie, and we can't let that happen because we're starting to pick up steam here, or we're delaying that from happening. So we're going to lose the audience if we don't cut this out. So we got to cut it out. So I think if somebody else edited this movie, it might have been that. They would have been well, this doesn't really work. We don't really need this. We've already set this up. We don't need to bring it up again.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of stuff would have really helped it. I don't know if it would have necessarily gotten a better distribution deal. I mean, it might have. It was the early 90s. If Todd Sheets could find distribution, I don't understand why Walt Hefner couldn't.
Yeah.
With the shot on video stuff, because people were... But then again, he spent almost $1 million on this, whereas Todd Sheets probably spent a couple grand on his movies,
That's true.
If it was 3 years, if it was 5 years earlier, and the market was still booming, I think this would have sold no problems. Even 3 years earlier, he would have been at least able to sell it. 92, I think it was a harder sell.
Yeah. I mean, even 5 years later, it at least would have been on DVD 5 or 6 years later. And I think, right. I don't think there's going to be a ton of 5-star reviews for it, but I think it would have found an audience. I think there would be some people talking about it as, at least an interesting film. But yeah, 92, the genre was not booming at that point. So
no.
Yeah. Well, I was
reiterating. Something about it worked because we're still talking about it.
Absolutely. I'd love to do my own edit of it. Like I said, cut out the bar stuff that was kind of irrelevant and just,
I would love to watch the process of Dan learning how to edit.
I have been learning technology in quarantine. Thank you very much.
I'm just saying that could be a reality show.
Actually, I want you two in the same room doing that. And I want to watch that. That would be Chris. Am I right?
Yeah, I can speak from experience. It's bad enough working with Todd when you know what you're doing. So somebody who doesn't probably would end up like strung up on a flagpole somewhere. Like there would probably be some death involved and some pain, or he'd like throw him in a tub of spaghetti. I don't know. Like he'd do something.
Well, when I win my Oscar, Todd,
Okay.
I'm gonna do it the first ever. Like I'd like to not thank that son of a bitch, Todd. Right there, middle finger
like,
with the Oscar.
I'm just like, let me do my thing. But I get that because I do still want to make a shorter cut of "I Spit on Your Grave" deja vu. I know who would think I want a shorter version of a rape revenge film, but
less story, more rape. I totally get it.
I mean,
when your runtime is like Avengers, which is funny. when I watched it, and I made a comment and I shared it, and it was the Avengers are the end game of rape revenge, and then the star liked my post, not even realizing I was talking shit.
Jesus.
I was like, well, she's cool, so
just waiting for the end with David Hess like catching Captain America's shield and all the perverts uniting. But the movie has its moments. It has its moments, but
I still don't think anything beats you guys reviewing a movie and then the director of the movie calling in while you're bashing the movie. That was priceless.
Which one was that?
I think that was I don't even remember, but I remember you saying when it happened and how like nervous Dan got about the whole thing because you guys were basically talking shit and he was waiting to get on the show. And I was like,
no, we weren't talking shit. It was your coat.
The one we're not allowed to mention by name, I guess. I don't know why, but
you know why.
And we give it a positive review. Thank you.
It was his best work, but it wasn't very good. But what are you going to do when somebody calls in and is on the line? It's like, so anyways, back to this piece of shit.
Yeah, that was an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I'll stir the pot. Who gives a fuck?
If it weren't for the directing, writing, editing, acting,
Black community,
then it might have been halfway decent. Don't want to be too harsh, but no.
Anyway, back.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, I was going to say back to the ghosting. Moving on.
Back to the ghosting. Any closing thoughts on this one, Chris?
Well, actually, I want to hear more from Todd because I really don't feel like that he got to say very much. So
yeah,
I'll be honest. You guys pretty much nailed everything. I mean, I did. Like I said, I was expecting something I wasn't gonna like. I like the what did you call it? The Muppet.
Yes, the dinosaur Muppet.
But some of the I wish I would have wrote some down. But some of the dialogue, I was just like, oh, that was so bad, but that was so awesome. There were just little lines that like jumped out. I was like, some of the stuff with the father at the end when he's like trying to tell him that he killed him. I was dying. I know it was supposed to be serious, but I was like, yeah.
Yeah. I measure dialogue on a scale from like a bad dialogue on a scale from like Manos the Hands of Fate to Doom Asylum. If there's lines like "You're in big trouble, torpedo tits," you sold me. But there were a couple of. I mean, I just kind of chalked that up to either a bad performance or because some lines, if a line's awkward, an actor has a hard time with it. I mean, look at Troll 2. Mm-hmm. Realistically, Troll 2 is like the problem with that movie isn't that the actors are necessarily bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're not great either. But the dialogue is awkward. Like, it's not the way people talk, And I love that one of the actresses, I think on the Best Worst documentary, was trying to explain to the director, this is not how American people talk. We should say it this way. And he kept telling her no. The guy who doesn't speak English kept saying to her, no, this is how I wrote it. This is how you have to say it. And that's why like lines of like, oh, we're going on a trip. You're going to come with us. Or, you should come or something. That whole exchange with her and her boyfriend in the bathroom was like about bedroom was super fucking awkward. Like, everything about the movie was super fucking awkward. But that was like the epitome of awkward.
Yeah.
Because then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll go with you," and it's like, what just happened? It just reminds me of a dubbed Italian movie where like you have somebody say something and then they say it again, but say it differently. So it's like they agree with themselves. It's just like, okay, so that's cool. But anyway,
it's hard for even a good actor to overcome horrible dialogue. But yeah, no, I thought this one again. I lived in West Richland, Washington, so I've actually been to Spokane. I can't remember exactly how far it was, but it was a relatively short drive, and it was kind of cool. I'm actually quite frankly shocked that I can remember ever came across a copy of this, because I've literally been to video stores in Spokane, Washington back in the day, but no.
Well, if you figure there was nobody really selling it to them, I mean, I don't think he went door to door. I mean, he might have gone door to door and said, "Hey, do you want a copy of my movie?" But if they weren't dealing, a lot of them dealt with distributors, so there might have been just no way for them to get it, or they didn't know it existed.
And honestly, he could have printed all these copies up to send to distributors to get a deal.
Yeah,
that could be the
and nobody
intent.
came back.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I hope at some point we can get some You haven't found any cast members that you've talked to, have you?
No, once I talked to the director's son, and it kind of turned into a dead end. I didn't want to start trying to find people, because it's I did that with Curse of the Screaming Dead, because there seemed to be a really good push for that for Vinegar Syndrome to put it out on Blu-ray. They're not saying they're going to do it or they're not going to do it. I'm not confirming anything, but it was heavily in discussion, because they did a poll on their Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of the top 5 titles that people had asked for, to the point where the guy who runs Vinegar Syndrome, or one of them, asked everybody, "Have you guys actually seen the movie? Because it's not a good movie." Because so many people were voting for it, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a regional horror film. It's intriguing in that sense alone, so we want it, out at some point."
Mm-hmm.
And so I started contacting some of the people who were in it, "Oh, this might happen." That was and I realized the other night, because I found one of the actors, one of the zombies, and I don't know who this guy was. I liked one of my statuses. I'm like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" And I checked our messages, and he was one of the zombies in the movie. It was from 2 years ago.
Oh.
So I'm like, I'm not going to start reaching out to people from this movie now until I know, oh yeah, it's going to happen. They've got the movie and someone's going to put it out.
Yeah.
And if you want to start finding people, go for it, because so much can change. I mean, even when we started doing Video Dead stuff,
took you a while.
Thankfully, it did, and I kept in touch with those people for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
If I hadn't done that, I don't think half of them would have showed up to do any of the extras or anything. I know pretty much none of them would, because it would have been oh, we talked about this 3 years ago. I don't know, whatever. But so yeah, it's tough when you got. I didn't make an effort to try to find them. Although I would like to talk to some of the people involved in the making of it to kind of get an idea of what.
Yeah.
Making this movie was like,
Most are probably still around. I mean, 92. And I should say, for newer listeners, Chris is basically the reason you have extras on the Video Dead Blu-ray from Scream. So, yes, that is why you've heard from anybody, I think.
I'm basically the reason it's out. So
pretty much, yes. I was going to say, if I were closer to it. But yeah. So, Pugs, any final thoughts from you on the ghosting?
If you can find it somewhere, I think it's worth checking out. So. And if you like little girls falling when they can't walk because they got a knee brace, that's also in here too.
There you go.
Oh my God, that scene was so uncomfortable. She yells at it. Get up and walk. You can do it. I'm like, Mom. I'd be like, Mom, why are you yelling at me? This is not making me want to walk towards you. If anything, it's making me want to leave. Mom was fucked up.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Get up and walk. You can do it. Get up and walk. Walk. Damn it, walk! And I'm like,
and then she apologizes right after. It's okay, well, this is pointless.
Sally Field, Forrest Gump moment there, but
and they never really explain what the fuck is up with the brace, because at one point she starts walking without it. But like, what is she eating for? Like, I don't get it. I'm just like, what's happening? Is she got like scoliosis or something? Like, give us something.
Yeah, that's that weird scene where she's down and then the legs kind of part, and I'm like, oh wow, this one's getting dark. But
it is rated PG-13.
Yeah,
I will say that it does have a PG-13 rating,
which is interesting because there are definitely some R-rated moments in it. Not nudity or anything, but there are a couple R-rated. Just the crucifixion sort of thing alone was like, I'm like, oh well, that's R-rated.
I'm not sure. I'm honestly not even sure that it was actually rated. It might have been.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that it was actually rated. He might have just slapped what he thought would have been a good rating for the movie on it. I don't know.
That's entirely possible because I was going to say this does not really. I mean, it's not super graphic, but you certainly have graphic moments that pop up and would push it into R-rated territory.
Just randomly.
Right.
I don't know. I think me and Pugs may have talked about it. Did you guys notice that the MPAA dropped an A?
So now it's just the MPA?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
MPA.
They dropped America.
MPA.
Nope.
So they're just the Motion Picture
Yeah,
Association?
because they want to be more of a global brand. Some bullshit.
I noticed Dan's tinfoil hat on, Todd. What did you do?
The UK is not going to let them have their 18 rating, so that's probably never going to happen.
All I know is I want to see Dan put tinfoil over his hat and wear his hat.
May happen. You never know. Got to block those 5G rays. You never know.
Dan cannot wait for 5G zombies. He will not stop talking about it.
You're not looking forward to Killer Hornets or whatever that one's called?
Shoot!
Murder Hornets.
I totally forgot that Tiger King full moon movies tonight.
Oh shit!
Listen,
really?
I'm not gonna lie. I saw some clips from that, and when I heard Leslie Jordan? When I heard his voice come out of that little boy's mouth, I'm like, all right, I might have to break protocol on this and watch this because like I fucking love Leslie Jones. It's Leslie Jones. Jordan? I fucking love him.
Did Dan just like literally leave in the middle of the interview?
Yeah, shit.
I mean, he didn't even. He's okay. Well, we don't need him anyway. So
he just took it down. He's going to take it down. Yeah, I saw that clip because William Butler was posting clips from it on his Facebook, and I think I saw the trailer too, and I fucking lost it. Like hearing his voice come out of that little boy's mouth, I was like, oh no, I have to watch this. I have to watch this one. I can't not watch this. It's fucking,
All right, I am back, and I
gotta see it.
I literally text Todd that I have to pee and I'm dying, but you talk crap right after I leave, Todd. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it was close. That's why I ran. God, Todd. All right.
If I didn't catch it, you could have messaged me.
I did.
No, I meant like message me that makes something makes a noise. Whatever. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Man's got to pee. I am kind of curious to see that tonight.
I got a double feature now. I was trying to figure out what to pair with Scoob.
Oh, is that tonight too? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm dating.
It's a real winner.
I'm dating when we recorded this, by the way.
We got a real winner there with Scoob.
It looks adorable. I'm excited to watch it.
Just makes me want to watch like the original Scooby-Doo stuff. I don't know.
I just finished the complete series and watched the first two films.
This is what Todd does.
And the porn parody.
No, that's after. I feel weird watching that in the lead up to the actual film.
All right.
But on that note, do we have anything else before we?
Some quick shameless promotion. Be sure to. If you're just listening to us, you could be seeing the video on the Flesh Wound Features YouTube. Now, we are brand new to YouTube, so likes and subscribes absolutely help us. Also, if you want to support us for exclusive and uncensored content, check out patreon.com/fleshwoundfeatures. We've shot a lot for the Patreon, and I know at some point there's going to be crazy bloopers, like trying to run to the bathroom and all that crazy
That's
stuff.
right.
There you go. There you go. Anything.
You didn't run. You didn't run fast enough. Your chair didn't.
That would have
spin.
been hilarious.
Slips on the
Yeah,
puddle.
that.
I was just
Um,
crack my head open and die on camera. Nah.
Before we wrap things up, wasn't there something we were discussing prior to the show that you guys wanted to discuss during the show?
Yes. We were talking about physical media, weren't we?
We were.
We were talking about a specific release. First of all, before we get into that, because I feel like do you guys want to rate this movie? Are you going to give it a rating? Because you all give your final thoughts, but nobody really rated it.
We rate kind of on a curve. Obviously, this is not a horror. I mean, I mentioned The Shining. Obviously, I'm not going to compare it on par with The Shining. But if you are interested in lost regional horror films, I'd say it's above average. I'd give it a 3. Thank you, which Todd called.
Well, yeah, I was doing it so it didn't take 20 minutes to go. 3.
I happen to agree. It's 3.
Yeah.
Chris?
I would agree with that. It's about a 3. If it was trimmed down a little bit, it probably would get a 3.5. But it's not gonna. Even the trimming's not gonna make it like all of a sudden it's a classic horror film. It's got its issues, but it's wild. It's entertaining. So it's got some obvious funny bloopers. That shit with the guy kicking the door and I lost it. I was like that. Bam. And I was like, I don't think that was supposed to happen. But anyway.
Absolutely. So, yes, if you can find it, check it out. Hopefully it'll be widely available, or maybe it is by the time you're listening to this. Yes. So what were we talking about? Which release? I'm trying to remember now.
Well, Blue Underground is going to 4K. And folks were talking about the release of Zombie and Maniac that are coming out, I believe, a week, if not 2 weeks. And there are a lot of folks that have an issue with these two releases because they just put out like this, for Zombie especially, they put out like a 3-cover edition, 3 separate covers, lenticular slip cases rather, edition, 3-disc Blu-ray. They put out a 2-disc Blu-ray of Maniac. That one might even be 3 discs too. Is it 2 or 3, Todd?
3.
Okay. And these weren't cheap. They were around like $40. I mean, you could probably, if you locked them in pre-order, you could probably get them for like 25, 28. But they weren't budget releases. And then they announced the 4K releases. So a lot of people are kind of like, why didn't you guys just do this in the first place? Because now if they want to get it the best version, which they thought they had, they have to buy it again. So there are some people who are kind of understandably upset that they feel like they have to buy it again. But I've always been of that camp is you don't have to buy it if you don't need to have that edition. If you're happy with what you've got, then just stick with it. There are some people I know that have the Shriek Show DVD of Zombie, and that's the last copy they ever bought, and that's it. They've never bought a Blu-ray of it. They're happy with that. There's people who bought the Arrow edition that didn't buy Blue Underground's new edition or edition before that. They're happy with that. So I always kind of have this sort of weird, like, I understand why you're upset, but I also don't think you have a right to be upset because you don't have to buy it. You want to buy it, and you're upset because you want to buy it, which means you have to buy it a second time.
Well,
I think I lost myself a little bit there. There you go.
Yeah, and I was also going to say now, of any time, you have to support these companies. It's not a bad thing that they're going to make money. Like, I get it. In a perfect world, they would have put some of the stuff. They would have put this out maybe towards the end of the 5 films they're supposedly putting on 4K, and it would have softened the blow a little bit.
The problem with your logic, though, is they didn't announce these after the pandemic. They were announced way before. So you're saying to support them, but
not because of the pandemic. Take that out of the equation. I'm just saying, just this basic time period. 2019, you could go back. I mean, you got to support these companies.
See, it's funny. I do that, but isn't that kind of like saying, God, I hate to go here. Well, they only had this much to work with. You should like this movie.
I don't think so. Because I think there's a difference between somebody who tried to make a movie with not like some. Okay, just to go back to it because we're here to The Ghosting. This was a very ambitious film. Granted, there was money spent on it, but with a bigger budget and a more experienced crew, it could have been a much better film, right? But there was definitely money spent. So they had the money, they had the resources, they still didn't quite get it. That's like a lack of experience and a lack of maybe even perceivably talent. When you've got a company that's putting stuff out regularly and you're putting down your money it's kind of like back when Anchor Bay did it. And I think if the internet was a bigger deal back then, people would have bitched back then too. Like, how many editions of Evil Dead and Halloween were there when Anchor Bay was really in its prime? Like, I felt like at least once a year we got a brand new something edition of either one of those movies at some point. It really just seemed like they were always going to be available, and whatever edition you bought was going to be outdated the following year. They were the iPhones of the DVD industry. Like, every time you got one, you were pretty much guaranteed another one was going to come out, right? Yeah. So I think when Blu-ray happened, or I feel like when Blu-rays happened, a lot of that hasn't happened until recently, in the last like 4 or 5 years, where some movies were put on Blu-ray once and now they're being revisited on Blu-ray again. Yeah. And even with that passage of time, people are like, well, I don't really need to buy the other Blu-ray because I'm happy with what I got. You know, it's 4 or 5 years later. This is a year later, where the technology existed to the point where it's like, well, why didn't you just do this in the first place? If your plan was to do it, why not just put out the 4K with the Blu-ray and make it this, you could have made it $50 then if you included a 4K, 2 Blu-rays, and whatever. I think the third disc was the soundtrack, or it was, or something like that. You could have done that package and people would have bought it and everybody would have been happy. But you know what's really bizarre is Suspiria was released kind of the same way, where they did the Blu-ray, then they did the Steelbook, they did the standard release, 2 versions of that, and then Synapse did the 4K, and nobody cared. Nobody bitched about that one.
No, they still bitched. Not as
bad, though. Not as bad, because I didn't see as much of it. But with, like, Blue Underground, they're like, well, fuck this. We're not buying it again. And I'm like, who said you had to?
Yeah.
And don't. You know? Of course they are. Of course they're buying it. They're pissed because they just pre-ordered it. They spent $40 on something they bought a year ago. But like I said, I can understand both mentalities. I can understand why they're upset. I can understand also why they feel like they want to have it, because as film collectors and collectors of physical media, we want to have the best version of the movies we love.
Of course.
See, yeah. I think that's more collectors than anything.
Well, that's what I said. Physical media collectors.
But I'm just going to say, because I'm like, oh shit, I get to buy Maniac again in 4K. I'm excited. That was my initial response. Do I care that I bought it a year ago? No. But I'm a fucking huge fan of the film.
Like, it's one of my favorites.
Right? So I'm excited. See, that's what I think. Some people just collect to collect, not looking at anyone. And I'm making fun of your vinyl thing, Dan. Not you, Chris.
I mean, I collect VHS tapes. Dan's kind of got a leg up on me on that one, so.
You can still buy record players.
Yeah. You can't buy you can't unless you go to a Savers or a Goodwill. You can't find a VCR.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's not another. Yeah, I had to pull a VCR just recently. One died. My double deck one. I was sad.
You know what? I was telling another friend of mine who collects tapes, and this kind of made things a little. I don't know. It just kind of dawned on me that. So like I own 3 copies of The Video Dead, right, on VHS. The director sent me one. I've got one my dad got me. I got one I got off Facebook. So there are no more copies of The Video Dead being made on VHS. They're just, what's out there is what's out there. So these 3 that I own, no one else can ever get. It's not like anyone else can buy it, unless you get it on eBay. Like, there's only so many in existence, and they only last for so long. So eventually, there's going to be none, because nobody's going back and putting these movies on VHS again. No one's going to go back. Well, no, well, I mean, I am, for myself, but I mean, like, in terms of, like, Embassy's not going to come back from the dead in 20 years and put their entire catalog back on VHS for people to buy. You know what I'm saying? Like, those editions, those movies They exist in that format. They only exist in that format, and they're the only ones that are in existence now. Because there were some that ended up in landfills. There were some that ended up in someone's collection that, in an estate sale that are sitting in a warehouse somewhere or someone's storage facility.
Thrown away.
That, whereas like, yeah, and like, whereas like vinyl's still being produced. So you could buy a brand new record at a store, and it's not necessarily rare because it could get reprinted down the road. Because vinyl outsells CDs now at this point. Like vinyl is doing better than CDs.
Well, Walmart and Target brought it back.
It's funny how excited Dan was for the Last House on the Left LP. It's like the 5th one that's came out. There's 2 other exclusives I know of, which is funny. I just came across my CD I got from Hess directly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember him selling those. Yeah, it's
But anyway, going back to the Blu-ray, the reissue. So I mean, like I said, I get where people are coming from. I get why people feel like that. If they had just waited, they wouldn't have had to buy it twice, but now they feel like they have to buy it twice because they want to get the best edition. But it also boils down to you're not going to die tomorrow if you don't get Zombie in 4K. Like it's not a life-threatening thing. You don't have to do it. You want to do it
because, as we already know from experience, they had to go buy the other one the first day it came out too. So if they don't get it on street date,
Well, no one's getting anything on street date. Now,
if you order from Amazon, you don't. I've been very frequent with Best Buy, Target, Walmart. Pretty much all of them hit street date.
Nice.
Amazon hasn't been that bad for me. It might be a day or two later, and there have been a couple that have been delayed. But they're the type of companies sometimes that do that anyways. So,
can I tell you my thoughts on Amazon? And I use them all the time. You know that.
Yeah.
I think they took. This is my conspiracy. I'm putting on my tinfoil hat because I think they could have still shipped everything on time. They just used it as an excuse to not rush on other shit.
I want my damn Blu-ray on Tuesday.
They're not wrong though. If they're like some stuff's more important than Dan getting his fucking.
The factory workers don't have to have lunch.
His Facts of Life DVD.
God, I need my Maniac 4K. I don't care.
Okay, yeah,
bleeding, old
then
lady.
we're gonna have a problem if I don't get that at time.
I'm with Todd though. I double dip all the freaking time, and like if it's one of my favorites, I don't care. I'll just buy it.
How many copies of Batman v Superman do you have?
Like every copy.
Okay,
I stopped a while ago, but yeah, I have at least 9. Maybe
how
10.
many Howard the Duck?
Whoa.
Again, same thing. Maybe like 7.
Do you have the VHS
release?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Howard the Duck's only. Oh no, the steelbooks and stuff too. I was gonna say Howard the Duck's only been on DVD, Blu-ray, and VHS, and maybe Laserdisc. So how the fuck do you have 7?
Whenever I see one, even if it's like a bootleg, I'll buy it. I'm one of those. It's Howard the Duck. I love it.
There's at least 3 overseas one. There's the double disc DVD. There's the German Blu-ray. There's the UK one, which is the one
I'm a psychopath. I'll buy 2 in case one gets damaged. I can't deal with it.
I don't know if you know this. That's his favorite film.
Yes.
I'm the same way. I just got done telling you I have 3 fucking copies of the video done on VHS sitting here. Like, I mean, like, trust me, I trust getting multiple copies. I get it. I mean, it's crazy. No, I think that's a collector's mentality too. Is you want to have one that you can use and one that you can keep safe, and never open and never touch.
Well, you can just be careful with your shit, not play fucking frisbee like I do.
Things happen. Things happen.
I will say, if you go through my CD collection, you can tell I used to drink while listening. I was just looking at the back of my DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff. They're all pristine. CDs. Oh, there's a scratch. That must have got dropped.
Well, the thing with me in VHS is even if it looks okay, like physically the tape is fine, like the case is fine, you pop it in and the tape's got tracking issues, it jumps all over the place, it doesn't play well, there's picture dropouts, audio dropouts. So my mindset is if I really like a movie, I like to have more than one copy, so I have a copy, because usually if you get 1 or 2, one of them plays really well, the other one maybe not so well. So you have one you can play and one you can display if you want to do it that way. So with that, DVDs and Blu-rays, I I don't think I think the only thing I have more than one copy of on Blu-ray is the TerraVision Video Dead double feature because it just went out of print. And I, for some reason, felt like if something happens to mine, I don't want to not have this. So I just ordered another one off of Amazon. So
I consider doing the same. That's fine.
yeah, because I don't know what could happen because Blu-ray is like it's scratch protection, like it's pretty durable. But I was just thinking, I was like, what if the DVD gets fucked up? You know, then I won't have it on DVD. But I'm like, I'm never gonna watch it on DVD for fuck's sake. Like I'm always gonna watch it on Blu-ray. And that might come out again. Somebody else might pick that up and put it out again.
I
so like
need that peace of mind, though.
Yeah,
that's very important.
I know. Yeah.
I could very easily. You might finally get your wish, Chris. I could see Kino putting out a separate one of each.
I actually think, believe it or not, I think Scorpion is going to be the one.
Well, they can do it too. They do a lot of MGM stuff.
And recently, I think it might not be public knowledge, but I think it is.
Exclusive.
No, not an exclusive, because I might not. Has Vinegar Syndrome made any announcements lately? Because I think they have a deal with MGM now, or they're working on one.
I thought they announced there was an MGM deal.
Thank God. Okay, they did, so they could do it too.
Yeah, I think that's where they got Rad.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Thank you. Ha! They did announce it. All right, cool. Yeah, so they could grab it too, because I actually talked to them about it. And I told them, the transfer, the big thing with some of these companies is the transfer. If I can tell someone, hey, the transfer on whatever disc was put out was older, that gives them enough incentive to look into it because they know they can do better now. Plus, there was stuff we didn't get to put on that disc that we found afterwards. So it would be cool to, kind of do a more extensive documentary. I'd love to re-record those commentaries because Todd and I were there together. The day before we recorded those commentaries, I started to get a cold. And I remember telling him I need to go to the pharmacy. I got like a gallon of orange juice, like 3 cans of chicken soup, Dayquil, NyQuil. I'm like, I'm not going to be sick tomorrow. I woke up singing Zippity Doodah the next fucking day because I felt fine. But anyway, my mind was still foggy. And I listened to one of the commentaries recently and I was like, wow, this is not good. But I guess you're your own critic. But I'd love to re-record those.
When Chris was in there doing that, I was outside of the room talking to the lady who owned the recording studio because she had an Eazy-E Platinum plaque. So that's all I wanted to talk about.
Motherfucker, I didn't even listen to us recording the commentary.
I did. There was 2, wasn't there?
Yes, there was 2.
All
we did the director, the editor, one of the makeup guys, and then the second one was the cast with the.
I think because the director, I was like, I'm gonna be in the other room.
Yeah, the best part about that whole experience was
going to El
when
Cholo.
Him and I went out. That was great, but no, when him and I went out to the little sitting area they had outside, it was a chance for him and I just to sit down and talk, because it was just like we're finally here, like this is it, like how do you feel about all this? And I was like, I don't know how to feel about any of this. Like I'm pretty overwhelmed, to be honest. And then he gave me a bunch of stuff, and it was cool. So I think that was my favorite part of the whole experience was getting to sit with him and just have a conversation about how everything sort of happened, and how it progressed and where we got to where we were. But anyway, yeah, I mean, somebody will pick it up again, and I think they'll put it out again. A lot of that stuff that Scream Factory let go, like Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3, like no one's going to let those stay out of print.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like Arrow's going to snatch those up. Someone's going to pick those up, and in that snatching of stuff, someone's going to end up with Video Dead as a title to put out, and they're going to look at it as like, oh, it was already a double feature, so we'll release it as a separate edition, and we'll do a little bit more feeling. I could totally see Arrow doing them too.
It's weird. It's also weird too because there have been much smaller and some would say more questionable stuff that got single Blu-ray releases through Scream Factory than Video Dead, and Terrorvision for that matter. I mean, I like that it was a double feature, but I'm sure there were a lot of people that really would have liked to have those separate because they also have separate fan bases too.
No, everyone was really happy that they put them together.
Just
nobody was upset at all.
Only one person.
I threatened to burn the building down. No, I'm kidding.
No, he did.
I
heard him do it.
Robert wasn't happy about it. I remember that. He said that he had never even heard of TerraVision, and he's like, I'm not. Listen, I don't think I'd made Citizen Kane or anything like that, but like this, because I think he looked it up. He goes, "This is nothing like my movie. The only thing they have in common is that like something comes out of a TV, and that's it." I'm like, I think that's what they're going for. But I think they were really new. Like they were still really figuring out what the market was gonna accept and what was going to sell well and what wasn't. And they even admitted afterwards, like, we probably should have released these separately because the sales were strong enough where they felt like they would have done well on their own. But they were still figuring that market out. Like at one point, Scarecrows was going to be doubled up with the Destroyer. And then they changed that at the last minute and paired it up with Edge of Sanity and put Scarecrows out on its own. Because I think they saw enough people were responding to Scarecrows. They're like, oh, wait a minute, we need to do this by itself. This one's going to do just fine on its own. And it did. It did do fine on its own. That was another one I almost bought another copy of when they said it was going out of print. But it seemed like when they announced that was going out of print, it was already out of print. Like there were no copies left. So I was like, well, whatever. I've got what I got,
I know you and Todd obviously already know this, but Pugs, Pugs, have you seen Video Dead?
I have not.
You have not? Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
I was going to say it features Michael St. Michaels, who played Big Ronnie in Greasy Strangler. So you may have to get on that.
I would like to see it.
It was his first role, and he was supposed to be on the Blu-ray. He wasn't. I can't say why he wasn't, but he wasn't on the Blu-ray, and it wasn't because he didn't want to do it. I'll leave it at that. But he was supposed to send me his costume because he still had it, and he was supposed to send me a VHS tape of his because he had more scenes that they filmed that weren't in the movie, and he had all of it. And he was supposed to send it to me because he was like, "I don't have a need for it. You can have it." And the fucker never did. Once Greasy Strangler became a big deal, he stopped talking to me.
He big time you, that dickhead.
He basically just stopped replying to emails. He stopped replying to text messages. I don't know if he was pissed because we did the Blu-ray without him, so he just felt like he didn't, because he actually played one of the zombies later in the movie. So I think he felt like we kind of snubbed him, but we didn't. At least I didn't. I wasn't the reason he wasn't there. There was somebody else who didn't want him there. I won't say who, but that's it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I really would like to see it. And there are deleted scenes from the movie that Robert has, but he won't release to me.
Oh,
so
there's still
one of these days I will get him to cave. I don't know when or how, but I'm going to do it
before the murder hornets kill us all. Hopefully,
yeah. Before all that, I actually should text him and see how he's doing. I haven't talked to him in a little while. Still try to stay in contact. He sent me a fucking sealed copy of the tape.
That's cool.
I'm like, I'm getting buried with this shit. You know what I mean? Like,
I've looked for the original theatrical every once in a while. Thought it'd be fun to
the poster.
Yeah.
I have two of them. Oh, no, I had two of them. My ex bought me a rolled one, and I had a folded one that I got off of eBay. I sold the folded one to somebody because I knew I would never put it up because it was folded. But
it's not cheap.
I have a rolled one too. No, even the video poster is not cheap. It's not an easy poster to get. I think it's just because it's such a cool image, and I think that's why it became such a popular like hipster tape because they see Video Dead, they don't even know what it is. Like, oh, it's Video Dead and it's on VHS. We have to buy it. And it just became a bigger deal because there was a period of time you could get it for like $25.
I think I got my copy for $7.
You what?
I think I got my copy for $7.
Yeah, I think back in the day when I bought one for myself, I think I paid $8 for it or something at a video store in the Cape. My family, it's actually similar to Dan's story. If my family and I went on any kind of road trip, we went anywhere. If there was a video store, I made them stop.
Yeah.
I just told them, you guys have to stop. And there was this one that we stopped at, and I always went to the horror section. I saw Video Dead, and I asked the guy, could you sell this to me? And he called the owner, and he was like, yeah, we'll sell it. It hasn't rented in a while. He said $8. And I said, sold. And that was like before I even knew it was rare. I just kind of thought like, because like video, like, you know, Suncoast didn't have it, Sam Goody didn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
I just never thought to even ask, can you order this? They probably still could have. But I never thought to ask. And then I found it and I was happy. So, and then my father found it at a yard sale and I was even happier because that copy was brand new when he gave it to me. So I got to open one and watch it.
Too bad you don't have footage of you young with it or photos or something. That would have been cool to see on the Blu-ray too.
There's nothing. And I looked too because I wanted to, if they asked for anything like that, I wanted to be able to show it, but it's not something that my family ever did because I didn't own a physical copy of it, like an actual release of it, until I was probably 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
And then my father went to the yard sale where the owner of the old video store used to run from was selling all of his back stock, and he had it there for $5. So my father knew I was looking for it, so he bought it for me. And I was like 16 at that point, so it's like no one was like sitting there snapping photos of like, you know, me and my VHS tapes, you know, but. My parents didn't even take pictures of us during Christmas when we opened Christmas presents. Like, there's nothing. I think there's a video of us, like we were like in our teens, but that's it. It's the only thing I remember.
I know I have some pictures somewhere of opening up probably some like entirely inappropriate stuff that my parents had no idea about at Christmas. I have to see if I can dig them up sometimes.
Did you ask your parents for I spit on your grave? Is that something you asked?
That's awesome.
Dude, that could have been one. I want to say there was some pretty twisted stuff that as a little kid I had like pictures of like opening. Not video, I don't think, although I do have a bunch of like home video stuff that should be digitized of like old family stuff, but yeah,
I want to see what Mini Dan was like. I'm kind of curious.
Irreversible, yay!
Oh, I was fully grown. The terror when it's like, let's put it on, let's watch it.
My mother. There were two movies that I wasn't allowed to see when I was a kid, and it was. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Exorcist.
Mm-hmm.
Those two movies in my house were like, nope, you're not seeing them. I don't want you to see them. Everything else was fine. It was just because she didn't know what it was. I think that was the thing is like, the shit I liked was so obscure that she didn't know what the hell it was.
Yeah.
But she saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre and she saw The Exorcist both in theaters, so she knew what those movies were. And Exorcist I really got once I finally saw it. I was like, okay, I can see why Mom didn't want me seeing this. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I was like, there's really nothing wrong with this one. But meanwhile, I could have Night of the Demons where Linnea Quigley sticks a lipstick in her boob.
Yeah. Well,
so like that was fine, but
it's always
Fuck Me with the Cross was off limits.
Yeah, and everybody heard about Exorcist because like I remember like going to IMDb and trying to figure out what had boobs in it. And then trying to like track it down. And there were a few times where I think like, it's like, why do you want this? This is like a Shakespearean drama. I was like, well, I like all kinds of things, Mom. It's like IMDb said there was a vagina.
Caligula, this is from the History Channel? Okay.
Yeah. I'm learning a lot about Caligula. I like
important shit, Mom.
I like learning.
Wow. I learned so much more about Dan, and it's like pieces of the puzzle are starting to connect.
Makes sense, right?
I'm starting to get it. Like, I'm starting to understand. Oh, man, we need to do this more often.
I have a rant. There was a very short period where there was a mom in grade school, a friend, well, not a friend's mom, but a friend of my brother's mom. And her name was Miss Bunker. Can't remember her first name, but I'm just going to call her out. Would go around and call all the moms about movies you should not let your kids see.
I hate her already. Fuck that.
Oh, I fucking hate her so bad. I remember one day she called the house for some reason. I don't know why my mom was friends with her. Because I remember even like when the first thing when I was confident enough to curse in front of my parents. I remember.
No. See,
just recently, because she's contacting people that she hasn't talked to forever in quarantine, and she's like, "Oh, do you remember Miss Bunker?" And I'm like, Mom, this bunker was a fucking cunt. And
Oh wow.
That is some white people shit. Because if I said that in front of my mother now, I'd still get smacked. And that's from the white half.
no, I told her, and then I went on a huge rant. I'm like, she made like, and I mean, granted, eventually I saw it anyways, but she complained about these movies, and it'd be random stuff sometimes that she got a hair up her ass about. She was like the OG Karen. That's exactly, if your image, she was a Karen before.
Karen Bunker.
There you go. That's
What if that's actually her first name?
I was
That'd be
only
great.
that would be. I was only ever banned 2 films in my youth, and that was Eddie Murphy Raw and Amazon Women from the Moon.
Oh wow, the last one's random.
Well, no, because my mother walked in the not penthouse.
Were you whacking your willy, Todd?
No, it was just the Playpen magazine scene, and she just saw a naked chick just walking around like nothing. I was like,
Oh,
really?
Jesus.
This is the one? And let me just tell you, that was probably 92. So like the next year, they wouldn't let me read Frankenhooker or Henry for my tower video. So I had to make them put it on hold so my mom could come in and rent them for me. But Raw and Amazon Women on the Moon from the Moon were bad.
But Frankenhooker was okay. When I was in grade school, I had a friend who elementary school rather. I had a friend who also liked horror movies, and not every Friday, but like every couple of Fridays, I'd get to spend the weekend at his house. And I brought this very tape into school to bring over to his house. And I don't know why I did it, but I took it out of my backpack and I put it in my desk. And the teacher saw me take something out of my bag and slide it into my desk because you had to lift the desk up. And she asked what that was. And I said, oh, it's just a tape. And she goes, can I see it? And I was like, no. She said, let me see it. So I took it out and I handed it to her, and she's looking at the box, and then she flips it over and sees the R rating and then walks away. I said, where are you going? She goes, you're not getting this back. And I was like, that's mine. Give it back to me. And she said, no, I'm not giving it back to you. I'm calling your parents, and if they want, they can come get it. So my father was a stay-at-home dad. He was disabled, but he could move around and stuff, but he was the one who stayed home. Mm-hmm. So they called the house. He got the call. He came in to come get me and come get, find out what was going on. And he flipped out the teacher. Yeah. He's like, because when she finally, because he asked her, like, did he like wave it around the class or something? Like, what did he do? Oh no, he put it, he took it out and put it in his desk. I'm like, so he didn't even show it to anybody.
Yeah.
He just put it in his desk. Like, and you made it a thing out of it, and you made me come down here to come pick it up. Like, obviously we know he has it. We bought it for him.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, what the hell? Like, and I had to take time, like, come down here to deal with this. It's his tape. He's going to his friend's house after school. What do you care what he watches or they watch? Like, both parents are fine with it. And she's like, well, you need to keep a better eye on your kid and not let him watch this kind of stuff. He goes, he's fine. Like, what is he doing? He's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
They thought I was going to be a serial killer by the time I was 20.
Well,
so
yeah, and it's like none of her business. I mean,
yeah, it was absolutely none. But it was.
Go, Dad.
Yeah, I know, right? And when I watched Demons, my mother walked in on the scene with the guys puking blood all over the girl. That was fun. And in high school, I used to make dupe tapes for everybody. I was a little bootlegger, and I made a copy of Zombie Lake for this kid who I think I mentioned the fact that it was kind of, actually it was. I think Dan would have, it would have been another version of Dan. I said that there was like nudity in it, and he was like, "Oh, can I see it?" He's like, "Okay, I'll make you a copy." So I made him a copy, and like a week later, all of a sudden, like all of these guys I never met were like, "Hey, can we get a copy of that movie Zombie Lake?" And I'm like, "Fuck, why?"
You became the guard smut peddler.
And but this is the stupid part. The kid told everybody that he was jerking off in the living room while watching the tape, and his mother walked in, and I'm like, "Why would you tell everybody that?" And he was like, yeah, my mother caught me whacking it to Zombie Lake, and now everybody wanted to see it. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So I had to make like 11 copies of Zombie Lake.
Dan has a very similar story with Jess Franco films.
I was going to say that.
Mom, I'm trying to beat off the barbed wire dolls. And this is last week.
God damn it. I mean,
it's Maria Rom time. Don't disturb.
That was 99 women, Bugs. That was 99 women.
Point stands.
He puts the towel on the doorknob. Yeah, Mom, don't disturb.
So
Yeah, it's weird thinking about that shit. How things have drastically changed too. Like, I mean, I don't think a kid's gonna walk into a classroom carrying a copy of Night of the Living Dead, but
On his phone.
you know.
I can see if like you had like a copy of Jugs or something. I mean, or a magazine, a dirty magazine. But like, yeah, it's
Like, there's nothing even offensive on the cover. Like, it's just zombies. It's like there's no nudity, there's no gore.
Yeah.
But I watched her read it, and she was doing this, and then it went right to this bottom left corner where there was that little R rating.
It was a Karen,
and that was it. And that was it.
Trying to rob you. She's like, I wonder if I can get away with this. I'll stay from this kid.
I'll give it back if you can make me a copy of Zombie Lake.
my fucking tape. Trying to steal my
Chris
shit.
was not having any of that shit. He's like,
I wasn't either. I even remember remember thinking like, he better get here quick because I'm gonna throw some shit around if he doesn't. Because like, she told me she would call him when she got a chance. I'm like, no, you're gonna call him right now. I'm like, we're not having this discussion. You think I'm a fucking disruptive shit normally? I will fucking tear this classroom apart.
You know what
Don't test me.
The news report was going to be? It's like horror film makes young man with delirious rage, and then there's like footage of Chris like just punching this like female teacher.
The desk would have flown up and everything. It would have been that meme of the guy flipping the desk over. Every desk would have just been in a row. I wasn't having it. She just wouldn't let up, and I did say like, yeah, you know. And then my dad pulled me out of school for the day. I didn't even go to my friend's house that week, and he said, I'm just going to take him home. She goes, you're taking him out for the rest of the day? Yeah. What does he want to be? He doesn't want to be here any more than I do. So let's go. He's like,
again, go Dad.
If he didn't get it back, the next day was going to involve a leather jacket and reenact.
Yeah. Well, Mom wanted to know what I was doing. Mom wanted to know what I was doing home because I was supposed to go to my friend's house. So he had to explain to her what happened, and
some bitch.
She kind of had the same reaction.
Fuck her.
She kind of had the same reaction though. She was like, well, if he wasn't showing anybody, who cares? And he was like, exactly. That's why I'm pissed.
Do you have any issues with the teacher afterwards, or was that kind of it?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I mean, I think probably I would have held a grudge. I was a weird kid.
Yeah,
I was a weird kid when I was growing up. I loved horror movies, and I was probably like one of two kids that did. I mean, when I graduated from high school, because when you graduate high school, they give you your permanent record. Mine was like this, and most of that was from elementary school.
Oh wow!
It was all the reports and all of the stuff that I did. I had to go see it. Like, they had me seeing a counselor. Like, they really thought like this kid's going to grow up to be a serial killer, like, because he loves this horror stuff. And I remember one time I was talking to the guidance counselor, telling him that I was excited because we were going to the mall after school, and I was going to pick up Phantom of the Opera. It was the silent Phantom of the Opera with Lon Chaney.
Mm-hmm.
His exact words were, "has an obsession with Phantom of the Opera." Like I said, I was going to pick it up after school. That doesn't constitute as being obsessed, you doink.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make love to Lon Chaney's gravestone or anything.
Imagine if it would have been the Robert Englund one.
Oh.
I wish I'd seen that when I was younger because I probably would have loved it. I didn't see that until I was older. I saw it on DVD, and I really liked it on DVD. But I would have loved it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I have the theatrical poster.
Oh, nice.
And it's still in good condition.
Nice. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I have the tape. that's a stupid easy one to find.
I used to have that one too.
Chris, when you come back, I want to read your personal record like out loud. I want to see the whole file on selling zombie pornography.
Well, that was in high school. They didn't know about that. I actually, when we moved, I think my mother threw it all away. Yeah, I think she threw everything out because I asked her recently if she had that stuff still, because the school we went to it was in a pretty tight community, and she's just like, I didn't keep that stuff. If you didn't keep it, I didn't keep it. And I was like, oh, okay, well then it must have gotten thrown out in the last move we did. But I just remember pulling it out of a box and holding it, and I was like, this weighs more than the Bible.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Like, How did this? I mean, I'm sure I could get a copy because they keep copies of everything. I imagine
somewhere
it might exist somewhere. I'm assuming they made copies of it. They just gave me what they had. Maybe they gave me it because I don't know if they're allowed to keep it or not. But they, I always remember too thinking whenever someone threatened to put something on your permanent record that was going to follow you around for the rest of your life. Little did I fucking know it wouldn't follow you outside of high school because, like, when someone says permanent record, you think they're talking to the cops.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, a cop's going to pull you over and go, so I heard you were quite the smut meddler back in high school. Like, what? Like, oh, no shit, that does really stick with you, doesn't it?
Yeah, what do you need?
Applying for a Best Buy job. Sir, I just want to sell washing machines and TV.
Yeah, right. Right. I know I'm a former bootlegger that used to make copies of tapes for kids. I was the most popular kid every October. I had people in other grades I didn't even know coming up and asking me for shit because they're like, oh, well, you can get us horror movies, right? And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And they paid me for them. I used to come home with like $40 in my pocket. I'd buy some movies at the store. I was like, where are you getting this money from? Nowhere. I think she thought I was peddling drugs because I wouldn't tell her what I was doing. I was like, I know I can't tell her that I'm doing that, but whatever.
I'm selling zombie porn to your friend.
Listen, I made a mint off of Zombie Lake. I sold like 12 copies in a week at like $5 a pop. I was thrilled.
Right,
Dan would have been your number one customer.
It would have been. But you know what sucks about that whole thing, though? I had to watch it 12 times because I couldn't just put record and leave the room because I had nowhere else to go. So I had to watch that movie 12 times in a row.
So was it worth it?
Essentially.
For the experience.
I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know.
I
don't know.
Dan would have no problem with that.
Young Dan in my not quite as awesome but still cool hat would have been coming up. It's like, man, you got Vampiros Lesbos? I need it, man. I need it.
Yeah. I would have looked down at your hands and just saw your hands all raw and red. You got calluses on your fucking on your palms.
Like they look now.
Pretty much. Yeah, but it'll be one hand.
Quarantine hasn't been nice to Dan's palms.
Use that lotion, Dan. You got to use that Vaseline. You got to.
Does anyone ever really masturbate with Vaseline? I've always heard that as a joke, but
you couldn't. Have you ever touched Vaseline? I mean, it'd be like.
So you tried though, right, Dan?
I'm sure I probably did, but I mean, that's how I know.
That was my whole
material. It's not the material. I mean, it just doesn't. I don't know. It's like, let's use pudding or something.
And that feels like the best thing to end the show on.
Yeah, I don't want to find out more. I really don't. No. I don't know how a show about the ghosting and VHS and physical media turned into the workings of going down Dan's mind, but I'd like to get out of the Twilight Zone now and go back to my regular life and have this be a thing.
Tapioca pudding, though, is awesome. But all right. On that note,
are you fucking for real right now? Jesus Christ! I'm never gonna eat tapioca pudding again, y'all. Like, no. Holy shit!
Well, now I got questions.
Right. Leave it. Well, Dan, why don't you wrap us up?
All right, guys. I think I already did all the promotion already. Be sure to also Horror Cartel. Join the Horror Cartel Flesh Wound Radio Facebook group and like the Flesh Wound Features Facebook page. Thank you.
Tapioca.
There you go. Thank you, Chris, for joining us tonight. We hope you guys enjoyed it. And we will see you all next time. Good night.